This isn't just a bad book. This was a book people paid for, that barely existed. And the deeper you look into the Age of Scorpius, the worse it gets. Here is the final post-mortem. I've been putting this video off, but maybe a final post-mortem is needed on Milo Winter and the Age of Scorpius. The whole situation, the whole mess, the whole documentary, the 10-hour video, don't worry, this won't be 10 hours. But let's just go through it. Let's look at what we can do as writers, as creative people, as creatives, as creators. You can learn from everything Milo did and do the polar opposite. Let's talk about it. Let's just rip it apart. I'm Darth James, and this is the final post-mortem of failure. Let's enjoy the show. Okay. When I originally wrote the script, I wrote this a little while ago, and I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to add to the noise. Because at this point, the Age of Scorpius isn't just a bad story, it's something else entirely. It's what happens when the actual writing gets completely lost somewhere between content, attention-seeking, lies, ego, manipulation, and countless other words that I cannot say in the first 2 minutes of this video. And I think it's worth talking about properly. It's not drama anymore, it's not even outrage, it's just the final post-mortem. Everything you shouldn't do if you create anything. I'm Darth James, like, sub, memberships are available as well as Patreon. Let's get into it, let's have some fun. Okay, let's just say it plainly. This book didn't fail because of haters, because of isms, because of, trolls. It didn't fail because people didn't get it. It failed because it wasn't finished. I read it. The first draft that got rewritten over and over again. Milo didn't edit their work. Milo rewrote the same draft from the ground up, over and over again, ad nauseum. It wasn't finished. Underdeveloped, under-edited, structurally broken, language that didn't make sense, a limited use of English and a lack of understanding about the use of English. It read less like a novel and more like something that never made it past that first draft. And that's the first lesson right there. You cannot brute force a book into existence through sheer time spent on it. You can spend 10 years rewriting the same story, and that doesn't automatically equal 10 years of improvement. Sometimes it just means you're repeating the same mistakes and the same problems over and over again. Don't do that. Rip apart your work. That's the best way to deal with it. And this is probably where it might get uncomfortable for some people, because this isn't just one book. This is what happens when writing becomes content first and actual writing second. We're in this weird space now, especially online, where being a writer and being a content creator who writes are starting to blur into the same thing, and they're not the same. Not even close. One is built on time, editing, failure, being told you're wrong, learning how language actually works in the first place. The other is built on engagement, visibility, and sounding confident enough that people don't question you. And if you lean too far into that second one, you can convince people you're writing something incredible before it even exists, let alone anything else. Let's talk about the lies, the persona, and the parasocial mess, because I think this is quite interesting. The persona. Because this whole situation didn't just collapse under the weight of a bad book. It collapsed because people started asking questions. About the background, about the experience, about the so-called awards, the story behind the book, and things didn't line up. And once that starts happening, everything else just unraveled with it. Because writing, even fantasy, even the most out there stories rely on one thing above everything else: trust. And once readers feel like they've been misled, whether that's about the book or the person behind it, they don't just walk away, they feel burnt. That's why people are asking for refunds, which you can legally do, as I've said many times. You can legally get your money back. Just means Milo will owe it to whoever Milo's payment provider is. But the relationship itself was completely broken. Through lies, manipulating stories, changing stories to fit the latest wave of criticism, having breakdowns online, being passive-aggressive, rants, being everything in between. Milo Winter proved one thing. Don't lie. Don't even try, because people will find out, especially if they don't like you. Then there's the inspiration side of things, because this is where it gets almost predictable. You can see, you can feel the influences clear as day. Anime, manga, Avatar: The Last Airbender. And look, every writer is inspired by something. That's normal. I mean, Avatar: The Last Airbender based fiction should have its own shelf in the bookstore right now. But there's a difference between influence and pretending something isn't there when everyone can see it. When you start denying obvious inspiration or rewriting your own creative history in real time, or stating you have PTSD and don't want to talk about anime, people notice. And using PTSD as an excuse, by the way, is kind of icky. Hi, that's just gross behaviour. But people will notice, they always notice, and the more you double down, the less believable everything else becomes, because unlike Milo Winter, most people who read books are well read. Milo certainly isn't, I don't believe that for a minute. Also, Divergent is another heavy influence in this book, on a level that I find almost fanficky in places, which I find kind of interesting to watch. And this is the part that I've been thinking about the most. Because I don't actually think The Age of Scorpius was ever a finished novel in the writer's mind. I think it was something else. It was a safety net, a controlled space, a world that made sense to a person writing it in a way the real world maybe didn't. And there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of us start there. But you cannot publish that version, because the moment it leaves your head and lands in someone else's hands, it has to function as a book, not a coping mechanism, not a personal echo chamber, a book with structure, clarity, and actual readable language.